Faith is belief in Allah and the messengers, the angels and the final day and the holy scriptures. To believe in destiny, that good and bad both come from Him, and the resurrection. There is no God but Allah. La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah. La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha.
He started studying textual criticism, and being that I was his best friend, I started studying textual criticism. My friend came to me one day and he asked me a question that I had never really even pondered upon. He asked me, he said, have you ever read the Bible? And I said, no, in church. I mean, yeah, we've all read the Bible in church. But he's like, no, have you ever read it? You know, like you read a book beginning to end. I said, no, I don't know anybody that's read, nobody that I knew had ever read it, beginning Genesis 1:1 to the end. He said, so, but this is the inerrant word of God, as we are taught. This is our instructions on earth. Why haven't we read it? He said, let us start with Genesis 1:1 and let's read the Bible and let's see what God says to us. There were a few things that I had learned from the Old Testament that I wanted to keep in mind when I started to read the New Testament. I learned, number one, that God was one in a unique sense. I read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. All of it was saying the same to me. I said, I was thinking to myself, this is not what I was taught about Christianity. And started to read the writings of Paul the Apostle. And things went from this to this. It went from one way to another way. It went completely flipped, turned around. The entire teachings went from obeying God, worshiping God, following the law, to worshiping Jesus Christ and abolishing the law completely. So I went and asked him about all this stuff I saw. And he told me, he said, what you have is a book written by men. And he said, and after all these years, you have a book now that is compiled from all of this, written by the hands of men that still have men's fingerprints left on it. And that's what you have. You have an imperfect book that is only perfected through faith. There was one litmus test that I used for every religion. And whenever I met them, or the people or whatever about this religion, I would always ask them, do you have a book? Do you have a book? Because another thing I had come to the conclusion of is that if your religion is true, you should be able to tangibly hand me something and show me that this religion is true. I believed in God with no form of religion. I prayed to God on the floor on my hands and knees, because this is how all the books of God, this is how the Bible, the Torah, the New Testament, the Bhagavad Gita, all of these scriptures that I ever read, they said that this is how the men of God prayed. I was looking in the religious section in the library at school, and there was a book about Islam. It said that Muslims were people who worshipped a moon god named Allah, who lived in a box in the desert in Saudi Arabia. Remember, the one thing that really caught my attention was the whole chapter on jihad, where it said that Muslims were allowed to kill non-Muslims at any time, at any place, without discretion, and it was an honorable act, and not only would they go to heaven for it, but they would get 70 virgins on the way. You know, so I closed the book on Islam, put it back on the shelf, and marked off Islam off my little list of religions. He said, have you ever heard of Islam? I said, yes, I've heard all about Islam. He was like, okay, so what do you think of it? I said, what do you mean what I think of it? That's probably the worst religion I've ever seen on the face of the planet. He's like, why? And he's like, I'm a Muslim. I was like, man, stop playing. After the adhan, and he started his khutbah. Inna alhamdulillah nahmaruhu wa I said, oh my God. I said, I bet you he's talking about me. You know, and he's being forceful. You know, he was getting loud and banging on the minbar, and he's pointing in my direction. You know, I'm like, oh man, I gotta get out of here really quick. You know, you have a book. Can you give me? He said, yes, we have a book. I said, it's called the Quran. I said, can I read it? Is it in English? Can I read it? He said, sure, you can read it. And then he tried to explain it to me a little bit how it came by. I said, nah, just give me the book, because the book should speak for itself. And I cried and cried, you know, that I had been looking for the truth all this time, had searched all this way, and it was right across the street. Right across the street from my house. We have the solution to every problem in the world. You want to solve the world hunger? The problem of world hunger? Islam has the problem. You want to solve the problem of world poverty? Islam has the answer. You want to fix the economic situation of this country? Islam could fix it tomorrow.
I have some deep questions about Christians. The Catholics have a prayer called Hail Mary.
Yeah.
And, you know, Hail Mary, Mother of God, blessed art thou amongst women. And I thought, well, how does God have a mum? And I thought, you know, as a little kid, I was thinking, well, if God has a mum, then, you know, this mum must be a bigger God than God. Right? I mean, this is how you try, you know, because you don't think that as a kid people are teaching you falsehood. Right? You tend to trust the people around you, and you tend to trust what the society is telling you. At the end of this conversation, he said to me, so you believe Jesus is God? I said, yeah. And he said, and you believe that Jesus died on the cross for your sins? I said, yeah. He said, so you believe God died? And it's like, you know, the lights went on. And so then I started to begin to look into different religions and different philosophies. And I found that Buddhism, to be honest, was, you know, well, it did have a positive effect on me. It had a very, it did have a positive effect on me. But at the end of the day, it still wasn't answering the fundamental questions. Why are we here? What's the purpose of life? What's the reason for our existence? And I actually invented my own religion, which was sort of a mixture of Christianity and Buddhism and Hinduism and, you know, and psychosomatic yoga and magic and, you know, whatever I'd read about and studied and philosophy, and, you know, I just put it together in this self-made religion, and that was the worst of all the experiences, you know, spiritual experiences I'd had. That was. I got to the stage when I thought, oh, maybe there is no religious truth. Maybe there is no big answer. Maybe there is nothing more to life than having money. I realized that if I had ever read a book that was from God, this was it. From all the books I had read, all the religions I had studied, if there was one that was true, this was the true religion. This was the true book. This is the one that was true.
So you were born into a Buddhist family?
Buddhist family. When I became a Christian, when I look at the teaching is so beautiful,
Yeah.
I say, if this teaching is so good, yeah, the religion of love, I should bring it and share it with my people. That's how I commit myself in the Christian missionary school. When I want to prepare myself, I got to learn more about, I got to go deeper, because I'm worried if I start to carry out this mission, if the people ask me, I don't have an answer. I have a lot of Muslim friends too. And so sad that the Muslims don't invite me to Islam. So I have nothing to do with Islam. I don't know what about Islam. I think this religion belongs to only to one group of people, not for everybody.
Yeah.
And these people don't believe that Jesus is God. I think I want to share with them this beautiful religion.
Now that's like, you feel like if they don't accept this, they'll go to hell?
Yeah, the
That's-
same thing. Yes, of
okay.
course we believe in that, because there's the only salvation. I was not allowed to read the Quran because, you know, in the 60s, no, Muslim don't give you Quran. You see, you are not a Muslim. You cannot hold the Quran. You cannot read the Quran. So I would say, please read the book of Allah. Islam is not Muslim. Muslim is the people. Islam is the teacher.
The socialist parties used to come to our high school, I'd always be arguing with them. When I'd ultimately argue with them, I always found the topic of argument returning to religion. And I'd speak to them and they'd say, we believe that religion is the opiate of the people. This is what Karl Marx said in his book, The Communist Manifesto. It's something which numbs the people. So I felt an amazing sense of attachment to my belief. But ultimately, in my heart, I thought, I really don't know that much about my belief. Now, I studied at least enough to know the 10 Commandments. The second of which is you should not make pictures, you should not make images of your Lord. Yet in the Sistine Chapel within the Vatican, we see a picture of God. And all he is an old man with a long grey beard. Is this who you're worshipping? And all of my family, some of who claimed to be, religious practicing Christians, they said to me, why are you growing your beard? Why won't you eat pork? Why won't you drink alcohol? And I'd say, well, the Bible says so. And they'd say to me, well, no, that's in the Old Testament. we follow the New Testament. And one time I remember he actually gave me a book. It was a very big book. I can't remember what it was, but for all I knew, it was the Quran. And I used to keep it in my room, even though I'd never read it. And one day my brother actually found it and he said, "What's this? It must be the Quran." So he took it outside and him and his friends, they burnt it, a'udhu billah. So even though I knew nothing about it, you'd understand I wouldn't want to join this religion. Because look at how much the people hate it. Who'd want to join something like that? So therefore your family will turn against you. Therefore your friends will turn against you. So I thought, man, I'm going to go home, I'm going to do my research, and I'm going to find out about his religion, and I'm going to attack him. So ultimately I wanted to look into Islam so that I could discredit it. The second thing I found out about Islam was that Muslims believe in one God, and they did not compromise on that. They believed in Tawheed and they would not budge. They didn't say any of the prophets were part of God. They did not say that God could become a man. They did not say any such thing, and every single religion you will see makes this type of...
He never said anything to us about, hey, are you Muslims, or why aren't you Muslims, or you should be doing this. His dawah, or his preaching, was in his behavior. But in the process of observing these Muslim brothers, I became increasingly impressed with their behavior. I mean, they were living a very moral and ethical life. I got around to asking myself the sort of the fundamental question, which is, what separates these Muslim friends of mine from me in terms of belief? I took down 2 different translations of the meaning of the Quran that I had acquired back in those courses, read them, and the more I read, the more I said, no, wait a minute, you know, this is what I believe. I saw within the Quran statements about these things that I knew could not have been known by any illiterate 7th century Arab. And so that left me with the conclusion, you know, this had to be inspired. Quite honestly, brother, I was uncomfortable with that conclusion. And a few seconds later, my wife turned to me and said, how did you fill out the question on religious affiliation? And I said, well, Christian, of course. You know, by January of 1993, I was now reading my 3rd different English translation of the meaning of the Quran. You know, because again, I wasn't going to trust these first 2. You know, I didn't like that conclusion I had come to, that Muhammad, peace be upon him, had been inspired by. And so Sister Iman came, and she brought me my order, and she glanced down and said, oh, I see you're reading the Quran. Are you a Muslim? And the word was out of my mouth before it could be modified by any social etiquette whatsoever. I said, no! And I said to myself, my goodness, what is going on with me?
I went, I laughed, I had fun. Yes, I got drunk and, you know, I danced, but I just feel like so empty. What did I do? I mean, I don't feel happy. Everyone's laughing, like you know, it's so fake because you're there and you pretend you're having a good time. But I would go home and I would literally be like what? I don't know, like, can I see myself like this in 5 years, 10 years? What am I really doing? And I was looking through some Bible verses right on the internet, and I just researched the 10 Commandments, which we all learned before, memorized in school. But you know, and I read the first commandment. You know, I am your Lord, thy God. Thou shalt not have any gods except me. You know, in heaven, earth, in between. Right? I mean, we all know that. You know, all the Christians know that. And at that time, it was different. It sounded different. And I said, but Miss, we don't really, you know, I mean, the Trinity and the whole issue of, you know, worshiping Jesus, it kind of goes against, you know, the principles of you know, what the Bible supposedly teaches. And she says, yeah, you know what, you're right, but, you know, this is just something we believe. And I remember in myself, I said, you know, I can't believe this. And I just said, you know what, I believe in God. All religions are equally evil or whatever, they just cause wars, and I just believe in God, and you know, I'll just live my life like that. I'll have my own religion where I'm okay with everyone as long as they call upon God, and I have no problem with praying with all that. You know, he taught me how to pray. He gave me, you know, Surah Al-Fatiha, and I remember I was, you know, my car broke down at that time for some time, and I was going on the bus, and every time I would be on the bus, I was reading through it. I was like, I will never remember these words, you know, like, what is Alhamdulillah, you know. I'm not going to remember this, you know, what is Arabic? I mean, why does it have to be Arabic? I would put it in my pocket. And amazingly, it would start going in my mind, you know, Alhamdulillah, you know. I was like, whoa. And he didn't see me for a long time, and he comes and he looks at me, he's like, wow, how are you, you know? did you become Muslim? And a slip of a tongue, I say, yeah. I said, no. There is a way out there, and it's not my way. I can't just pick my own way and say, you know what, forget with this, forget with that. I have my own way. There is a way out there, and God wants me to find it. If you're sincere and you ask for it, get down there on your knees. Put your head on the ground. If you're Christian, you're not going to have a problem with it because, you know, Jesus did it, Abraham did it, and other prophets did it. Put your head on the ground and ask. You know, don't ask in anyone else's name, okay? This will not be something that will go against, you know, your belief either. Just ask the one true creator. Just say, oh my Lord, creator of the heavens and the earth, right? Use, you know, oh, the most gracious, the most merciful, the creator. Show me the truth.
Faith is belief in Allah and the messengers, the angels and the final day and the holy scriptures. To believe in destiny, that good and bad both come from Him, and the resurrection. There is no God but Allah.